No one thinks it's the breath. It's this silent epidemic of people breathing too much. It's extraordinary. There's nothing in your body that you could do for 4 people, like you're doing it 4 times too much. Like if your temperature was 4 times too high, you'd really notice it. Well, you wouldn't, you'd be dead. Your breathing can be 4 times too much and you have no idea.
We've all come from a very different place, even though we're from the same family, and yet Buteyko has definitely, clearly and obviously helped us all in our own fashion, and that's pretty remarkable.
I think we started Buteyko just after I went into hospital for an asthma attack. I mean, I've always had really bad hay fever, so some of them work a bit, but it's never enough because wherever I was, I would always be set off by something. From when I was about 10, I was in pretty much a constant state of allergic reaction. I got so used to the feeling of being allergic that I didn't question it anymore. I just thought that this was how it was and that was it, and I was going to have to deal with that. And I didn't really think about it anymore. And I would be like very puffy, and in the mornings I'd wake up and have sneezing fits, and throughout the day, whenever I went outside, I'd have to have like medication and tissues with me. And
tissues were a major family expense, weren't they?
I would have to take tissues with me everywhere that I went, like to the point where I would go to my gymnastics classes and I'd put like a tissue in between my shorts and my leotard because I thought I'd just need them at any given moment. We would have tissues in every single room of the house, and it would be all that was in my bin in my bedroom was just tissues. I'd go through them very quickly because I was just constantly in need of them.
But we got a bit of a wake-up call when she was in Matilda as well, and we got a message through from the voice coach.
Yeah, so
and I remember how she described it as well. She said Lillian has got a wall of mucus.
Yeah. She was right.
Yeah, it was very dramatic the way she described it.
So, and we always knew when you were awake because it would start with sneezing and blowing your nose. So it'd be okay, he's awake now.
This voice coach was very shocked by my state because we were doing exercises where I had to like hum and stuff, and I just couldn't do it because my nose was blocked. Like I just couldn't hum. I couldn't pronounce any M's or N's properly. I just couldn't do it. And she was quite shocked by that and wanted me to feel better and be able to do things more freely. And
well, they wanted you on medication, actually. That's what they wanted. Yeah.
To achieve that result.
Yeah.
Want to put me on medication.
Mm-hmm.
I think for a little while before I went into hospital, I'd had asthma, but I'd never put it down to being asthma. I just thought it was like part of the hay fever. I would get a tight chest and I would get wheezy, but we never pegged it as asthma, really.
Well, Edna, but every time you laughed, pretty much every time you had a proper laugh, you would get wheezy.
If I laughed for more than a few seconds, I'd get wheezy and I'd be really out of breath. The feeling that was recurring was the tight chest feeling, which I hate so much. And it was like a few months ago that I got a tiny glimpse of it, and I felt so discouraged by it all because it all came rushing back. When I came out of hospital, obviously on a lot of steroids and Ventolin every hour or so, my control pulse was about 10, I think, at most. Like at a good time of the day, it was 10. And that was in September of 2018. And that was very weird because when we started doing Buteyko, we had our first call, and within, what would you say, 2 minutes?
It was amazing.
Within 2 minutes, I went from the state, like I was like sweating, I felt really feverish, and I was just sneezing and coughing, and like my eyes were running, and just, it was not calm at all. I hadn't felt calm in a really long time. And within 2 minutes of being on this call, it was gone. It wasn't gone permanently, but it was gone. Then we just started like slowly building up the exercises, and I got my control pulse up to 12, and then I was stuck at 12 for quite a long time. And that was tricky because it felt like I wasn't making any progress, but I was. And then I think suddenly from 12 it went to about 25 or 20.
You were waking up at night to do exercises, do you remember?
So I was doing exercises every 2 hours, 2 hours plus rescues at any hint of a symptom, so it was like a sniff or a sneeze, I would have to do a rescue. And if at any point I felt like I needed to use Ventolin or steroids, I would have to do a practice and then 2 rescues. And then if I didn't feel better after that, then I could have 1 puff of steroid or Ventolin and then another rescue. So for about 3 months, it was kind of the only thing that I was doing in the days.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
And it wasn't like...
You weren't always happy about it.
No, but the thing was, even just to get those glimpses of just being able to breathe, something that you take so much for granted until you can't do it, just being able to breathe again, or just to be able to go out and like sit in the grass and not have to run home, was something that I hadn't experienced in years. I didn't remember the feeling. Like, it felt like a new feeling. I mean, I've had hay fever since I was 2.
3 it started.
3. Mm. So I think that, yeah, I could have done like less of it and I could have progressed more slowly, but also I didn't want to. I just really wanted to get there and for it to be over finally, and just to be able to, simple things like just to be able to go to a class without having to worry about bringing tissues and medication, and do I have to bring my inhaler? And I really didn't want to be on steroids for the rest of my life as well. So I wanted to keep going. I wanted to keep going because every time I got a glimpse of the future, that spurred me on. But it wasn't like easy at all. It was never easy. A lot of points were very frustrating because it felt like I wasn't progressing, or I would progress and then I would fall back. And it was just a very strange thing. But I think by, what would you say, like spring of 2019?
Yeah.
It was very, very different.
Spring's quite a difficult month to get through for someone with hay fever.
I would have hay fever through spring, summer and autumn as well, because we'd get like the molds.
Autumn was bad.
I'd have really bad hay fever in like around September and October.
Yeah.
September was really bad normally.
Well, that's the mold.
Yeah. And we had carpet beetles once, and do you remember when we had carpet beetles and I was in an absolute state? I just didn't know what to do with myself because there's nothing you can do.
Over.
For some days when Lillian, there was just the odd day when Lillian was just sneezing almost all through the day.
And it's also incredibly tiring.
Yeah.
Like, there's not really a way to describe it. When someone says like, oh, I'm really tired because I've been sneezing, like, it doesn't really make sense, but it's so tiring.
Well, I actually know what you're talking about because it's called rhinitis. And I just had this constant watery stuff coming out of my nostrils. And I'd be sneeze, recover, sneeze, recover, sneeze. And it would go on. I might have to sneeze 25, 30 times. Exhausting.
So tiring. And also because I was blowing my nose so much and like wiping it, I was getting like, my nose starting to bleed around here. Like, it was like red raw and it would bleed, and I would wake up with like blood on my pillow from my nose. And within 3 months, I would say, I could go out. I didn't have to have tissues by me every second. I didn't wake up in the night sneezing, which was another thing that happened a lot. I would wake up sneezing and then have to be up half the night trying to get back to sleep. Within a few months, that was gone. There's still a long way to go from there, but it just being able to feel like a normal person was...
Well, that took a few months, and then you went on from there. Your story is very different, and this is very characteristic of everybody because we're all very different.
Yeah, well, I never had a problem with asthma or allergies, which I think we thought was quite lucky because I didn't get any of these things that other people seem to get quite easily. But I did have this fungal thing, which I still do, but it's very, very mild now. I got that when I was 7. It's called ringworm. It goes on your head or on your tummy. There are 2 types. And I got the head one. And it's really, really hard to get rid of. And we tried lots and lots and lots of things.
You started getting it on your eyebrows as well?
Oh, yeah, yeah. It was very, very bad at the start, wasn't it? I didn't actually realize that I had anything, but I remember my head was really, really itchy, and I was sort of itching it at one point constantly. It was sort of at that stage. It's a lot better now. We're probably going to have some sort of party when it finally goes away.
We won't call it a ringworm party.
No.
I wish it wasn't called ringworm. It's
got nothing to do with a worm.
There's no worms involved.
I was going to grow my hair afterwards and see what it looks
He's going to have long, because when he was young, he had lovely long hair. And
We've had to do short back and sides. Actually, short all over, really.
Yeah.
And in fact, when you played football, you'd have to take an extra litre of water.
Oh yeah, I'd have to take 2 water bottles, one to drink and one to pour over my head, so that it stopped being so itchy.
Have you noticed any difference apart from the scalp condition? What else have you noticed?
The big thing that I noticed was my fitness, because I don't do it now, but I used to do a football class every Friday up until the pandemic. And then when I did it, I would try very hard to sort of be in all the positions, because there wasn't a huge group. So you sort of had to do quite a few things when you were playing a match. And I would try very, very hard and breathe very, very hard through my mouth. And I got really, really tired quite quickly. And by the end, I was so tired that I would just have to sort of sit down, sort of, I imagine, very slouched, and recover for like 10 or 15 minutes before I sort of really wanted to do anything else. And then, I started doing this potato and was told that I should breathe through my nose. So then the next time I went to the class, I tried to breathe through my nose, and it was really, really hard. It was so hard. I did actually manage to do it most of the time, but it was really, really difficult. And now, at this point, it's much easier to breathe through my nose than it had been before to breathe through my mouth as heavily as I wanted. And also, I found something really interesting, which is that when I played football, I would sort of run around and start getting tired, and then I would stop. If I could, I would stop and just stand still and just try and reduce my breath a bit. And after about something like 20 seconds, I would feel like I could sort of start all over again, like I wasn't tired anymore.
Brilliant.
So your ability to kind of recharge was much more efficient.
Yeah.
And you play football with your mouth closed all the time now, don't you?
Oh yeah, it's easy. It's
amazing. I mean, I can't imagine it being able to do that, but
well, you look at a football match, a professional, they've all got their mouths open.
Yeah.
That's mainly to swear, isn't it?
And we're listening to that a lot more closely now, because there's no one in the ground, so you can hear really well. That's fascinating.
Yeah. Also, I noticed quite recently, I'm not feeling as bad as I used to. Sometimes I feel very down mentally. And I actually realized a few days ago that I wasn't actually feeling that way for a while. So that was good.
Excellent.
That's been since your control pause went past about 45 seconds, I would say.
Something like that.
There was a shift and Emmanuel started giggling.
Giggling?
Yeah.
When?
Yeah, I'd hear you chuckling, talk about something going wrong and you'd start laughing. It was really nice to see. Also, you had quite strong breath.
Right.
And now I can talk to you close up this. It's fine, absolutely fine. No problems with that.
That was a long time ago.
It was strong though, wasn't it?
It was very strong. Very noticeable.
Very strong.
Yeah.
Well, apparently when I started, my control pulse was about 12. And when I was in the beginner's lesson and I sort of realized that that's what it probably was, Joe, who was teaching us, said that he was surprised that I wasn't showing more severe signs of bad health, because control pulse of 12 is very low.
Yeah. Well, you were very fit, as was Lillian. They were both very fit, lots of gymnastics and sports and football and all of that stuff. So there was no way of knowing, really.
Well, I think it's possibly more to do with that we were young, and that, I mean, I was thinking that I might have actually dodged a bullet a bit, because if I had waited a few more years, I might have started to get more problems, showing up.
Well, I've met all kinds of people that have a very low control pause and have no symptoms because genetically they don't have a defensive mechanism.
Well, there were symptoms in both my children. They just things that were not shifting despite all our attempts to help. Eating organic food, I was cooking good food. At one point we tried to eat a lot of alkaline, we were drinking spring water. I thought, oh gosh, is it the water that we're drinking that's acidic? So I quickly changed that, started buying bottled water. Poor delivery man staggering up with loads of bottled glass bottles, not even plastic. You know, I was really trying to create a healthy atmosphere.
We both did a lot of sports and still do. Like on paper, we had the perfect health.
Yeah.
So you did everything perfectly. Didn't make a difference.
Why can't we shift these chronic things? And having myself had chronic issues as a youngster, I really didn't want to go down the allopathic route of giving them steroid creams because I did all that in my teens and it just made things worse because it thins the skin and it spreads as well. It can spread and it's very unpleasant. And for 10 or 15 years, I was in a state with these creams. They were making me very, very edgy. They had become like my go-to solution and it wasn't a solution.
So what were you actually treating?
In my case, it started with psoriasis, an eczema-like skin thing. And one of those things where doctors shrug and they say, oh, it's genetic. And then they give you strong creams. In my day, they used to give a tar cream, which would stain clothes and stink to high heaven. And you had to be incredibly regular for it to make any difference. And then as soon as you stopped the treatment, it would flare up again. And it could spread to other parts of the body. So I remember in my early 20s, sitting up at night panicking. I made the huge mistake of joining the Psoriasis Association or whatever they called themselves. So then I'd get literature about how bad it can get. So I stopped that really promptly, which I think was a good decision.
It's a very good decision. I did the same with the chronic fatigue support team or group or whatever it was.
I don't join the club.
I went once and I thought, I don't want to talk about this. I want to get out of it. So would you like to say something about how you started?
Well, prior to starting Buteyko, which I only did because you told me to help Lillian, I had tried pretty much everything under the sun.
Very obedient.
I'm very obedient. No, I take instruction. I had my handwriting analysed and that was one of the things that came up. I do take instruction.
From Martha, but not from me.
Well, that will change as my control pause keeps going.
Oh, good.
So I had tried everything, starting with these down creams, which didn't work. I mean, they work like magic at the beginning and then they just make things worse, as I said, because the skin becomes thinner and then less resistant. And I could start to see the veins through my skin on my elbows, for instance, where I was applying the cream the most. So that put the sort of flea in my ear that maybe doctors didn't know how to solve this. And I really wasn't convinced by the genetics thing because I have sisters who didn't have it at all. So I thought, what is it about me? So I had psychotherapy, which helped in lots of ways because I had had a troubled childhood. But the skin wasn't particularly shifting. I did homeopathy, which was great. One remedy that I took just really cleared a patch of psoriasis and it never came back. So I thought, right, homeopathy must be the way. And I did spend a lot of money on homeopathy. And my homeopath said, I can't give you the same remedy again because homeopathy doesn't work like that. It's like unpeeling the layers of an onion. So just because it worked the once doesn't mean it'll work again. I said, just please give me more of that remedy. She didn't work. Nothing else worked in homeopathy after that. So that was homeopathy out the window from that point onwards. So then I went on to acupuncture, Chinese herbs. By that time I was beginning to lose hair, which I had started doing from the age of 11. My eyesight had also deteriorated. So lots of things happened in my teens. There were lots of things sort of seemed to break down a bit in my teens. So just trying to get all these things back again. What else did I do? I just did so many things, you know, I tried all the dietary stuff you're supposed to try and do. At one point I did the blood type diet. I'm sure all that stuff helped a bit. I went gluten-free, that helped a lot in the sense that I was digesting much better, but it didn't particularly stop me losing hair. I would look at people with a full head of hair in McDonald's And I would think, how can you be eating McDonald's hamburgers and have a full head of hair? How do you do it? Like, I'm so careful with my health and I can't even grow hair. Like Lynn was thinking, I can't even breathe. What's the matter with me that I can't even do this breathing thing? And I was thinking, what's the matter with me that I can't even do this hair thing? Or why can't my skin just be normal? I'm working really hard at my well-being here. You know, I've never smoked, I've never taken drugs, I don't really drink. So it was very strange. Anyway, so when you told me do Buteyko, it will help your daughter and it may as well help you. I said to you, I've just given up now. The only thing that helps me is practicing A Course in Miracles, which is basically meditations. And that seemed to help me stop losing hair a little bit. But there was nothing else that I was going to bother. By that time, I'd stopped taking supplements. I was fed up with spending money on things. I just didn't think anything was making a difference. I'd seen thyroid specialist, you know, an endocrinologist at St. Mary's Hospital, and he'd said that my levels were off the scale. And I said, I'm going to stop the thyroxine. It's not helping me. He was really worried about me. I said, I think my problem is actually adrenal, but I'd seen an adrenal specialist and that treatment hadn't helped me either. So it was just like, I'd given up. I just thought, I just can't keep trying to heal myself. I have to just live life and enjoy life while I'm here. And, you know, I was still functioning fine. I was still, you know, churning out family meals and going about my day. And some days were very good and I could get things done and work and so on. So I had just come to a place of acceptance. And then you said, you've got to do Buteyko. You said it might help you. You made me take my control pause, which was 15. You said you're breathing for 4 people and you said, and it's just going to get worse. I thought, oh gosh, that's a bit strong. Like, I don't feel so bad. The first thing that happened is that I started losing weight. Well, I wasn't even thinking about my weight. I had a bit of a middle-aged spread, a bit of a tummy. It didn't bother me. My control pause is now about 50 and I've lost 10 kilos without trying to lose 10 kilos. It was very bizarre. I have been on weight loss diets in my time in my 20s and they hurt. That's really unpleasant. And this was nothing like it. It was just my appetite just guided me. There's a feeling of lightness. The best description that I can give is it's like a feeling of having changed, swapped bodies. I used to think, I wonder what it would be like to be in a lighter body, like just different body with more energy. And I have it. It's weird. When I was a kid, my mum used to drive a Fiat 500 and it was like, it was like this. And now it feels like I'm not in that Fiat 500 anymore. I'm being carried in this sort of Jaguar that sort of purrs. So like simple things like going for a walk is like, kind of like, it feels really easy. And I look forward to going for a walk because I can go quite fast and not get out of breath. And that's nice. I never knew that I was getting out of breath. It never crossed my mind because you don't know that you're hyperventilating. But now I know that it's just a really nice, easy ride. That feels great. My hair has not particularly grown back yet. There is some significant hair growth at the front. I think it's early days. I've been doing it for 19 months now. So I think, you know.
You were told that that all the hair that you still had was sort of dead at the roots anyway. It just happened to stay there.
Right. Vladimir said that.
Vladimir told you that.
That was encouraging.
Well, he said that you sort of had to create, create new roots or something. Or
yeah, I did go through a process of losing hair. When my control pause was in the 30s, I did start losing a bit more hair, and I thought,
and that's when you asked him, and he told you.
And he said it would grow back again. I think it is growing back, but it's just too early to say. Do you know what? I don't care because I'm married. I've got a loving family. It's not like I need hair to be well in life. And the thing is that I feel so much better. That's the real reward. I sleep a lot less, so I've got more time in the day. And I don't wake up craving more sleep. That's horrible. When you wake up and all you want is to just be able to go back to sleep. And I don't have that anymore, or very rarely. And I find that I don't have to do things so much out of willpower. It's more a case of the will arises. I don't have to. Sometimes I do, like if I'm cleansing, I have to do things out of willpower. But generally it's more kind of I look forward to doing something. I'm happy to pop out to the shops. That's quite useful. It's like, oh yeah, oh, we need milk. And it's like 10 o'clock at night. Oh, I'll just pop out to the shops. That's fine. I'm just glad they're still open, you know. That would have been unthinkable, wouldn't it? It would have been unthinkable a year ago. And cycling. Now, a real measure of my progress has been through cycling because I used to have a bicycle and it was just in storage for years. I didn't feel an inclination to go on it. And we did do a ride on some, Boris bikes about a year ago or a year and a half ago. And Lillian was outpacing me. I was being outpaced by my youngest child. It was quite embarrassing. And I was, kind of puffing and puffing up the hills thinking, gosh, the cycling thing is tedious, isn't it? It's nice to do a family outing, but I'll be glad when it's over. And I didn't realize it was because of my breath. I had no idea. I just knew that I was a slight embarrassment to the family. Also, once when we went to the Lake District, you all looked a bit worried because I couldn't really make it up that hill. And then
you haven't talked about Ireland.
Oh, let's not even talk about our cycling trip in Ireland. Edward actually had to pull me.
We attached the bikes with a rope and I pulled it.
Worst holiday ever. But I think I was anemic at the time. I'd taken iron pills and I wasn't absorbing the iron. So, there you go. There was just nothing. There was no remedy that I hadn't tried. And then recently I went on a cycling trip and it was so easy. It was so pleasant. And I was with a friend who was wearing all the gear. So I was really daunted because I was there in a little skirt. So I was thinking, oh gosh, she's really prepared for this trip. She'd had the kind of the glasses and all the kit. And she was on her racer. And I had this kind of Brompton bike for Edwards because I wasn't at all prepared. And I just had a bag slung around my back. And I thought, she is going to completely outpace me. This is going to be a repeat. And it wasn't. It was absolutely fine. And I enjoyed it and I wanted more. So suddenly cycling has become pleasant. So it feels like I'm getting younger. I feel like Benjamin Button. I've now done a U-turn and I'm reversing backwards.
I've been doing Buteyko for a year less than these guys. I'm an infant in comparison, really.
Your quadruples has gone up really, really quickly.
I'm lying about it. No, I withheld the lure of Buteyko for quite a long time for various reasons. Actually, the main reason was I didn't think that I was disciplined enough to do the practice that I saw everyone else doing. And I didn't want to start a practice that I didn't think I was going to be able to see through. I didn't want that feeling of disappointment. I think that was largely what it was. But then I had a bad winter. I got ill in November of last year. I've had a history of bronchitis type issues. But then last winter, I actually wondered whether I had COVID-19. I had a cough that went on and on. I had breathlessness and some of the symptoms that they described.
And we all got stuff around that time, but mildly.
But it just went on and sort of worked for 3 days and then kind of collapsed when I got home. And Manuel sort of offered to help me out, and we did a few practices together. And it had an instant calmative effect.
Stopped you coughing or almost stopped you coughing?
I could barely get to the end of a sentence. Often I couldn't get to the end of a sentence. It was particularly bad when I was talking. And then Eileen was just, very gently in her way, twisting my arm in a very sweet way.
Well, I just booked a family course with Chris.
We had this family course with Chris, sort of like family therapy, really, wasn't it? Mm. And actually, I surprised myself. I've been really on task with the practices, and I think progressed very quickly and being really encouraged. What Lillian mentioned earlier, this phenomenon of improvement and then falling back and improvement and falling back, that's really been a focus for me. Some days where I feel like I'm Superman and I could fly through the air, and then I wouldn't say come crashing down, but then the next 2 days later, finding practice is actually quite difficult and unpleasant as well. But if you looked at a graph over a period of time, there's been a steady progress, and certainly in terms of my coughing and my bronchitis issues.
And Edward, you've had a cough since you were about 20, 25. When you were about 25, 26, 27, you had to take yourself off camping because your cough was so bad, and we thought it was maybe the London air. And he just got in a car and drove and went and sort of camped near a beach somewhere.
So the coughing has been an issue. Buteyko, I don't know. It's subtle. I think for me it's subtle. I had this acute illness in the winter, but generally speaking, I'm quite energetic. I don't have very obvious chronic symptoms, so the effects have been subtle. I've noticed that on days when my CP is high,
you make lots and lots and lots of jokes when you're
I'm sometimes a bit hyperactive and I can't stop speaking. I can walk now. Eileen and I have been walking a lot during the pandemic in our local area. We've been walking 5 or 6 miles every day.
And before, when you were walking,
Yeah.
you actually couldn't breathe through your nose unless you were walking really, really slowly.
So I couldn't breathe through my nose. I would be streaming as well through my nose. I was really annoying, like Leon, like having to like almost count out the tissues before I left the house. That's all changed now. So breathing through my nose when I'm walking is fine. The changes have been, I mean, apart from the coughing, which has gone, the coughing has largely gone, and that's great. I suppose I'm thinking about this coming winter because all my problems kind of are focused in on the winter. So for me, you know, now we're in July, I suppose the proof of the pudding, what I'm interested in anyway, is to see how I am in the wintertime, because that's when I would normally suffer most significantly. Also, when I get back to work properly in September, when I'm being more stretched in terms of my physical and emotional resources are more stretched when we get to the winter. But for now, I'm well, and I'm continuing to practice, and I find it interesting. I find the practice, vaguely unpleasant and also interesting at the same time. We're sitting here giving a testimonial. We're bigging up Buteyko. I would say there's something very strange and mysterious going on when you're doing this practice, and it's very hard to pinpoint exactly what's changing and how it's changing. It's this rather strange practice, not always very pleasant, sometimes fine, and a strange, rather mysterious, subtle process taking place over a very long period in the background. And because of the changes I've seen in the family, I've just trusted in the process, carried on practicing, day after day after day. And it's just very interesting seeing these shifts over time.
But you say it's not always very pleasant, but surely, when I finish a practice, I can feel really good afterwards. And
that's
I
true, that's
imagine
what
you feel really good afterwards as well, right? Some of the time.
Yeah. Yes, it still has that sort of, you feel kind of smooth, smoother.
You get that, don't you? When you've been able to, there have been times when Lillian has had a sneezing fit and she's just gone and calmed herself by doing practice. And it's remarkable. A family member was visiting. She was so impressed that you could just go and sort out your breathing and get yourself out of a...
With hay fever, the Buteyko was pretty, because I had a strong bout of hay fever this year, it was pretty magical, wasn't it? It was the only thing that was really helping me.
Yeah, I haven't had a lot of hay fever this year.
Sorry, what were you going to say, love?
I think that a lot of what it was for me, because it had been going on for so long, and as I said, it's so tiring, is that so much of it was mental. I wanted to be able to mentally function, because it interrupts everything when you can't breathe. And my eyes would also be incredibly allergic.
Yeah.
I'd have red, itchy eyes, and they'd be watering all the time. And we went to an ophthalmologist, and he said basically that you've just got allergy in your eyes.
Yeah, he said her eyes were full of allergy. She had a little chalazion, which is on its way out now, isn't it? And so then there was going to be more steroids and stuff like that.
I was on steroid eye drops and stuff. But so much of it was mental for me that I could suddenly just go throughout my day without it being interrupted. And that made a big difference for me. And in terms of the practice being unpleasant, I think since I was little, I've always wanted to push my boundaries, my physical boundaries in sport, especially. So in a strange kind of way, the fact that it was unpleasant had a kind of almost sadistic appeal to me. It was like, oh, it hurts, so it must be working.
What would you say to someone who was at the level and the sort of the situation that you were at that age, when you were were you 13 when you started? And I remember you saying it was a big hurdle because you had been doing Buteyko before with a different practitioner.
It wasn't working.
But it hadn't really hit the spot. We were changing teams to this team, and I had to sort of sell it to you. I can't think of a better word. I had to try and explain why we were going to start all over again, but with a different team. And you were angry, if I may say so. I
honestly don't remember. So.
Oh, I remember it. It was like, Mum, how much more work is this going to be? And I don't want to be doing breathing stuff the rest of my life,
because
you were cross.
It doesn't feel when you start like it's going to make things easier, because it feels like you're just adding things on and nothing's getting better. But what happens very quickly is that you realize by adding things on, it actually is incredibly relieving, and it takes away more than you have to do. But it doesn't feel like that at the start.
Especially the first month, right?
The first month.
When you were having to wake up at night, you were often angry in the night, and I'd be there saying, because I'd be waking you, wouldn't I?
I would be waking
to do a rescue
every few hours just to do practice. And it's discouraging also when you're not getting results, or you're getting results and then you're falling back, and it's just very discouraging. So you just keep going. Most things that you do, like in terms of diets and stuff, you keep looking for immediate results and constant results. And that's just not how it's worked. It's a very kind of sawtooth progression.
Oh, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, that is a good way of putting it.
And so the only thing I can say is just to keep going. And it's difficult, but it gets easier.
And it causes family tensions. I do want to clarify that. We are constantly telling each other, you need to do Buteyko now, or look, you've just had a sneezing fit or a coughing fit. Don't you think you should go do a breath hold? And it's really annoying. I mean, Emmanuel has said to me, Mum, you're chest breathing. I don't want to hear it in that moment, because the reason why I'm chest breathing is because something's up. So when something is up, you don't want someone to correct you at that moment. But it's helpful. And Chris did point out it's helpful doing it as a family. And I haven't thought of it that way. We have helped each other. And we also understand what the other is going through. We're able to support each other.
There's a culture of Buteyko in our household now. So we're all doing it pretty much at every point in the day. Someone somewhere is doing weird things with their breath. And that culture is, I think, crucial in terms of carrying on with the practice. It's got to a point now where doing Buteyko has become a little bit like brushing your teeth twice a day. It might not be something you want to do.
What, you only do it twice a day?
Oh, no, it's a good analogy. Come on.
I hope you're doing it at least 3 times a day.
3, 4, yeah. But in the sense that it's not something like toothbrushing, it's not something you necessarily want to do, but it's just become the accepted part of a family routine. It's just what you do normally before we eat. Because it's such a slow process, the only way for it to work within a family is if it becomes part of that rather mundane routine.
Yeah, you don't want to say, are you going to do Buteyko? You just want to say, Buteyko, guys, or now's a good time to do Buteyko and have supper soon, whatever. It just needs to be, or Buteyko call, so that, there was a time when we just hated the name Buteyko. It just the...
Oh, I know.
That word again, the B word.
That B word, yes.
Yeah.
It can turn into something else quite quickly.
But, we've been able to help other people. My children have been able to help other people. Other children are noticing.
A good example, when
I
was in a show, I had a friend who suddenly just started having a lot of difficulty in her breathing, and it was going along with an anxiety attack. And it was kind of an hour before we went on stage. She was absolutely freaking out, and we were able to just go outside and just in a very kind of, I didn't explain the practice or anything, but I just kind of said right, sit down and let's just do this. And she calmed down immediately. She could immediately breathe and just everything stopped. My mum's told a lot of people about Buteyko and my kind of success story, and they've been very motivated by it.
Yeah, because no one thinks it's the breath.
No.
It's this silent epidemic of people breathing too much, and you have no idea. It's extraordinary. There's nothing in your body that you could do for 4 people, like you're doing it 4 times too much, that you wouldn't notice. There's nothing else that I can think of in the body. Like if your temperature was 4 times too high, you'd really notice it. Well, you wouldn't, you'd be dead.
I think,
like if your blood pressure was too high, a little bit too high, you know. But with the breathing, your breathing can be 4 times too much. And you have no idea. No one notices it. No one says, look, you're gasping quite a lot or sighing quite a lot. You're getting out of breath a lot. No one says that.
The other thing I think is fascinating is that, you know, we're all although we're part of the same family, we're all incredibly different and in a way have had an experience of very different chronic conditions. I mean, yeah, Lillian and I kind of bronchial stuff. Emmanuel's been the skin guy.
The what?
No, in terms
the skin guy.
You know, but I don't want to categorize this. It's probably a bit demeaning, but you know, we've all come from a very different place, even though we're from the same family, and yet Buteyko has definitely, clearly, and obviously helped us all in our own fashion, and that's pretty remarkable.
It is really quite remarkable, and people do underestimate the method. They don't really give it enough respect. The potential when you learn the method is huge, absolutely huge. I don't give it enough respect. I've been working on it for 13 years. I realise that from time to time, because it's very easy to just slip off from it, very easy to fall off the wagon, very easy to somehow not give it enough attention. That's one of the problems with it. And the rest of society isn't attending to it. They have no idea. So you feel like you're on your own. So it's even more important to be in contact with other people who are practicing.
There's no culture in the UK. It's a very marginal thing. No one knows about it. No one talks about it, which I think makes having all of us practice in the family really helpful, because we have our own culture of Buteyko here at the very least. But if you start talking about it to other people, it raises a few eyebrows, frankly, because it's a bit like, loco.
I don't get that reaction. I think it's the way you're telling it wrong.
I
I only get a positive
you're
reaction.
just so convincing.
I want to talk a little bit about cleansing.
Yes.
In relation to Lillian's journey, cleansing's been a really big deal. And I also want to thank you for the support that you've given us in identifying whether what Lillian was experiencing was cleansing. And she had some really weird symptoms.
Do you remember the stomach thing?
The stomach thing was really
that was
weird.
the most intense thing. It happened twice or 3 times?
Twice. And on both occasions, we were on the point of going to A&E.
Yeah.
Because it was like a cramping feeling, and it was really strong. I wondered if it was appendix. It was puzzling.
It felt like a kind of combination between a cramp and just being stabbed. And it would come like every couple of seconds. I would just have like this surge. Like it felt like everything in my stomach was just like constricting. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know how long it would last. The first time it happened at around 6 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. Or the first time it happened at night, and then the second time it happened in the morning.
Oh, I don't recall.
And I just woke up and with this pain, and I thought it would just go away, and it didn't. It lasted half an hour or an hour or something. And it was really probably one of the worst pains I've ever felt. Because I had also the uncertainty. I didn't know where it was coming from. I didn't know if I had to do something to stop it. I didn't know when it was going to go away. I didn't know anything. We couldn't figure out what was going on. And we really didn't think it was appendix, because we did all the tests to see if I could have appendicitis, and it just wasn't flagging up as anything. And I took a paracetamol or whatever, but it barely even made a dent. That was pretty strange. And then it came back a couple of months after, right?
Within weeks.
Oh, was it weeks?
Within weeks. Okay. So on both occasions I said, right, that's it, I'm taking you to A&E now. And then on both occasions you said...
That makes it sound like I'm faking it.
Gosh, no, it was absolutely not.
I really
fake.
wouldn't have faked it. It was so painful.
You said, Mum, let's just try some tapping, EFT, I do.
Yeah, and that calmed it.
That stopped it, in fact, didn't it?
No, it didn't stop it. It calmed it, and then it kind of slowed down from there, I think.
But we're pretty sure that was cleansing.
Yeah.
Some weird form of cleansing.
Then did you actually do pauses?
Yeah, I did loads of rescues while it was happening. The thing was that I would be like in the middle of the rescue, and it was so severe, I'd be like curled up, just trying to find a position where I could soothe it a little bit. So I'd be in the middle of steps or whatever, and I'd get it, and I'd have to like kind of sit down or do something.
Sometimes as a cleansing reaction, you get very severe spasms. And it's about how to get the CO2 in when you have a very acute spasm. The best thing I found with that is shallow breathing. And very, very small pauses. Shallow breathing and small pauses.
And then after that, I was so scared of it coming back that I did loads of like stomach pumps and stuff, just try and get. But
it passes, doesn't it? It went.
Yeah.
Do you want to sort of mention any other kinds of symptoms you had as cleansing? Have you got just a sort of summary?
Yeah,
I got
summary.
Headaches, I got tummy aches, I got fake asthma, I got weird runny eyes and stuff, and I was like running, and I mean, I was very feverish. That happened a lot. Like I would get these hot and cold blasts and just feel quite ill, really. But it would go away. It was this weird thing. It would come on very suddenly and then leave just as suddenly as it came.
Yeah. And do you have any symptoms you want to talk about that you had the cleansing, Eileen?
Nausea, right from the off, mild. Barely knew it was there, but enough to put me off eating. Oh, a wave of irritability in the first week. I remember shouting at Emmanuel and thinking, I was just feeling like fizzy. I don't know, does carbon dioxide actually make me fizzy inside? I felt like I'd become like a carbonic drink and I'd been shaken. Everything becoming liquid, just, everything that could liquidize. I mean, Chris said toxins just liquidize out. He didn't use those words, but, the mucus, peeing a lot, bouts of slight diarrhea. I had a very weepy, just like a puffy, weepy face that went on for weeks when my control pause was about 20 to 30, just months, I think, of just looking a bit puffy, and then one eye tearing a lot. Headaches, chills, fever, slight sore throat. In the first 2 weeks or so, I called you because I couldn't turn my neck, and you said I wondered if I was getting meningitis. I thought I probably wasn't, but I thought maybe it's one of those things I should check out. And you said, no, you have a lot of veins in the back of your neck, and they're being oxygenated to a level they're not used to, and that causes a stiffness.
Well, it's whether the brain vessels are being dilated because of the CO2. Whereas they were very constricted, they're now being moved about, and it creates a horrible sensation.
And recently I've had times when I just want to stay in bed for a half a day. It's very strange, and then it just lifts. Someone told me that was normal who had spoken to you about something similar. A little bit dizzy at times, weird skin flare-ups. I had one really weird round patch here, didn't know what it was. It didn't look like eczema, it didn't entirely look like psoriasis. Mysterious, and it's gone now. You had that. Both my children had weird.
I still have it
patches.
a tiny bit, which I thought I got a round patch, which I thought was, it looked like ringworm to us, but it was like a very strong, but just in one circle on my arm, and then and now it's much better. It's like a few spots, but it's still there. It's not gone away yet.
I got a big patch of eczema under my chin.
We seem to have all got circles of things.
No, it wasn't really a circle, but it was here, and then it spread up pretty much to my lip, and then just kind of went away again.
But that went on for a week or two, didn't it? It was sort of travelling that way.
Yeah, it kind of travelled up and then just went away. It was really weird.
And I mean, every time we've had these things, we've tended to contact you and say, what's up? And you said, yeah, that sounds like cleansing. Keep at it with the pauses. And so it's been really useful. As a parent, sometimes you feel like you've got to be responsible and know what it is, because if it isn't cleansing, then maybe as a mum, you should be doing something about it. I check my children's tongues. That seems to be a really good way of knowing if it's cleansing, because the tongue is really furry or coated. If it's cleansing, chances are.
That's another example of, because it's something unfamiliar, you need to check with someone that has enough experience to have confidence in the process that they can confirm that what you're having is normal. And that's basically what we do. That's one of our main roles, is to confirm that everything's fine and you are to continue. And that kind of helps the mind to calm down. It also calms the breathing down, because if there's any sort of disquiet or any sort of doubt in the mind, you breathe more. That's one of the problems.
And also other people won't understand it because it looks sometimes like you're getting worse. Even people who think that they know Buteyko. We had somebody who means very well, but who said to another professional, oh, Lillian shouldn't be going through so much cleansing with Buteyko. And I checked that out with you. And you just explained a lot of people just don't realise, perhaps because they're not trying to get to the high scores that we were aiming for. But there's been a lot of cleansing.
How about Emmanuel?
Oh, well, in 2019 in the summer, I started feeling quite bad, quite depressed, quite a long time, most days. I found it really, really, really hard to do practice, and my scores went down. And we all wondered if actually after that ended, my control pulse had gone down. And then I found out this whole thing about sleep affecting Buteyko so much. And I sort of wish that I had known that earlier, because I was sleeping about 10 hours a day. It was pretty regular, about 10 hours a day with no breaks. I didn't wake up in between it. And I know my breathing is bad during my sleep because it starts getting worse as soon as I lie down. And so we think that my control pulse actually went down to, what do we think it went down to?
17.
17, really? Right.
You got to something like nearly 40, 41 even, I think, and then you went down to 17.
It went up quite quickly after that, fairly quickly, because probably the resistance wasn't so great. Because I'd already sort of pushed up to 40. But yeah, I try to do quite a lot of stuff with my sleep now, and I think that's actually a problem with quite a few people. I remember there was a follow-up, and someone had typed a question, and they had said that they had a control pulse of something like 17, and they'd been practicing for like 18 months or something. And I was thinking, well, that could be due to them sleeping so much and not realizing that sleep was such a big problem.
Yeah, we've worked very hard with Emmanuel at breaking his sleep patterns because, of course, as a parent, you always think sleeping's good. I never interrupted my children's sleep. Chris got us shaking all that up. And waking Emmanuel, it's like trying to wake someone who's been drugged, heavily sedated.
I sleep through most things. I literally sleep through earthquakes and thunderstorms. So I actually have 2 alarm clocks and I sort of hide them. And then I put heavy things on top of them so that because I actually turn them off in my sleep some of the time.
But it's really helped because now your control pulse is about 50 now.
I think that is because I actually haven't practiced nearly as much as you two have, because I still have a resistance in my head to the practice, although it's much better now. I still find it hard sometimes. And I think the sleep thing has made it so that even though I'm not doing a huge amount of practice, I'm still getting better.
Yeah, good. How about you, Edward? Cleansing.
I think probably the most dramatic thing that happened was in the springtime this year, when I got about 2 weeks of the most violent hay fever that I've ever experienced. I mean, it was very, very debilitating. Struggling to breathe at night time and wake up in a state.
What's your control pulse now?
Now, it's sort of hovering around 40 at the moment. And
when you started, it was kind of just under 20, something like that?
Yeah. I think it was 15, 16, 17, something like that. But my hay fever this year was the worst ever. But it was interesting also because it was very acute for 2 to 3 weeks. Then it tailed off day after day, just tailed off. And I haven't had a sniffle since. Nothing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you blew it out.
Yeah, that's how it felt anyway. I mean, it was a real struggle when I was having it. Then I've been clear.
That's very characteristic.
Yeah.
And it becomes very, very acute, and you have to keep treating it until suddenly it vanishes.
Yeah, that's how it felt.
What, you only do it twice a day?
Oh, no, it's a good analogy. Come on.
I hope you're doing it at least 3 times a day.
3, 4, yeah.